Welcome to Yoga is Science, the podcast where Western medicine meets Eastern philosophy. I'm Colynn Vosburgh, a former emergency room nurse and medical student turned full-time yoga teacher. With over 200 teacher trainings taught, I've come to understand how yoga really is the original science of life. And I'd love you to join me as we explore the profound ways that ancient wisdom and modern science intersect to support healing, growth, and transformation. Let's dive in. All right, everyone. Well, welcome today to Yoga is Science, the podcast where I always think East meets West. So I thought today, as I'm working the podcast, kind of like I would teach a teacher training, where I've kind of landed now is in holding space, which really brings me to the nervous system. So it brings me to regulation and dysregulation. Here's the thing. When you are holding a yoga class, you are holding space. When you are in a relationship and you communicate with your partner, you are holding space. The question is, how do you hold space? Most of us were not taught how to hold space. So usually, if we experience emotion, because we're so used to blaming emotion on other people, whenever we have it, we look around for what we can explode upon. So as a yoga teacher, you're going to hold the space of that possibly happening to you, as well as hold space for people to kind of just move through their journey in general. What do I mean? I run somatic yoga retreats, right? When you come to me, I'm just over like, I'm so surprised when I hear that people are still like literally doing power vinyasa classes and like that is a version of yoga for people. I'm still kind of blown away by it because there's so much more to it, and I've been in that world for so long that it seems like you're missing out on so much. Yet that's what's happening. People are finding about like somatic yoga and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love this. I want to come. I want to experience this." And then they come and it's so not power vinyasa. Like that's it. And then they're quiet, which means thoughts and emotions are going to come up. And this is literally a space created for that. And then the first thing that someone will do, especially someone that's not necessarily emotionally intelligent, will get mad at me as the teacher. This happens in our relationship a lot. In any relationship, not just like partnerships, but like parental, sibling, friends, is that when you do something that I don't like, I get angry about it. And then I blame you and think like you need to change in order for me to be okay. And that's an issue because people don't change just for you to be okay. Well, some do. That's also a thing. As a recovering people pleaser, I have changed myself to suit other people, which takes me further and further away from my own authentic self. And that's an issue. So, how can we, and that's emotional intelligence, is really learning about us having emotion. And yes, it might be about somebody else, but it's not really like for them to fix. That's the thing. I have, I also am allowed to have ideas or boundaries or guidelines about how people must interact with me in order to be in my ecosystem. So how do we find a balance between both of those things? Is like, I can't project all my stuff onto someone because the only reason I'm having anger is because there's anger in my body. But also, I'm not a doormat. So, how do I convey that to somebody if I want to stay in contact with them? And so, first and foremost, is doing your own work and learning more and more about emotional intelligence. A key factor being just because you have emotion doesn't mean it's because of somebody outside of you. I want you to think it's more like that person outside of you is picking a scab that's tender on your own body. And so we don't want everyone just walking around picking our scab, but also, if we stopped picking it, then we would possibly like no longer have that issue. And then we could heal it. And then people can pick all they want and it's not that big of a deal. So, how do we do this? This is holding space. And it's not just holding space for a yoga class, it's holding space for your own self. And I really think like looking at the energetics of the situation is so important in order for you to understand what holding space looks like. So I looked up what the true definition of holding space is because I heard this word when I went to Costa Rica, and then I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, I kind of have an idea of what that means, but what does it really mean? And I Googled it, and guess what? There's no holding space in the Webster's dictionary. So when I looked, it said the actual definition of holding space is to be present with someone without judgment. It means you donate your ears and heart without wanting anything in return. It involves practicing empathy and compassion. You accept someone's truths no matter what they may be. And you put your needs and your own opinions aside, allowing someone to just be. Holding space may appear to be easy, but sometimes our own opinions and our own egos can get in the way, making it more difficult to put into practice. So, I often offer a practice of sitting in groups, usually two people. And then the first one, like, okay, one person comes up with a story that they have that's like a really important story and like a really deep, moving story. And then the other person just totally ignores them. So be on your phone, like literally look at your watch, like what can you do that's like really ignoring? So then that happens. That's the first one. And often people feel like, wow, like why would I even tell this story? They kind of like hold back on sharing details. Like there's a whole process that takes place. And then what I have people do is switch. And then now the other person tells their story that's really deep, intimate, and personal. And the other person overreacts. The other person is there like, oh my God, yeah, like totally overreacting. And so then we have the same experience though by the storyteller is like if somebody's constantly asking questions, they're interrupting, they're like, yeah, like saying things, continuing that way, then the storyteller also will leave out details or like also embellish it to get more attention. Like it's really interesting what the storyteller does in relation to what the audience does. So the idea is to remain in holding space is to remain empathetic and neutral, allowing everything to happen. So one of the agreements that we've talked about is that we hold space for others, which means not consoling them. And this has been a bone of contention for some people when I say, when somebody's crying, just let them cry. No giving tissues, and no touching them. And some people are like, just think I'm terrible. Like, how could you say that? But think about this, the energetics of handing a tissue to somebody while they're crying. I'm not talking about the subjective what's in your heart. I'm talking about the objective energy of handing somebody a tissue. It's literally dry your tears. Stop crying. The consoling of somebody, like putting your hand on their knee while they're crying, that's like they're there, stop crying. So the idea overall is like, let's look at the energetics of the situation, not the feeling behind the action that someone is doing. Because the reality is that usually if you're handing a tissue or you're consoling someone by putting your hands on them, you're actually trying to get them to stop crying and make them feel better, which is likely an issue that you have with other people having emotion. And if you got comfortable with having emotion, then you would be comfortable allowing people to have emotion and not doing anything about it, just holding space for them to emote because emotions aren't bad. But that takes a lot of inner work. And so that's why I say, like, holding space always starts with your own inner work. And then that means that when somebody's crying in front of me, I'm not offering any words. I'm not offering tissues. I'm literally just sitting and witnessing the person, allowing them to guide what they want to share, um, how deep they want to go. And then the only thing that I would ever ask is, how can I support you? Also, when you give somebody a tissue, it's like not trusting that they're adult enough to ask for their own tissue or grab their own tissue. Why, when somebody's crying, are they all of a sudden not able to do anything? And can you not trust people to ask for what they need? So there's a lot of like old ingrained behaviors in our consoling that while you may be doing it from a kind place in your heart, it's not actually really coming from that. It's coming from a hurt place in your heart because you haven't yet done your work. Agree or disagree? That's okay. All I want to do is plant a seed for you to look at and think about. Okay. So if we go back to like, what does it mean to hold space? Well, one of the things that comes up for me um, is like being judgmental. I have an issue. I feel that I am a judgmental person. I feel that I am constantly judging. I read a book like forever ago. It's called You Squared, and within it, I don't remember what she said, but the lesson I took away is the more that I externally judge is because I am so harshly internally judging. And I remember after I learned this lesson in my own head, I was driving out of my like a complex and I saw somebody and I thought, nice eyebrows. And then I was driving down and I caught myself. I was like, whoa, that was a judgment that like really I didn't need to have. And then someone was walking across the street. And I thought, nice outfit. And I'm not talking like I really thought they were nice. It was from more of a place that I didn't think they were nice. And I was judging them for what they were wearing and how they did their makeup. And like, because I have a standard and I uphold myself to that standard, but I also uphold everybody else to that standard. And so the lesson I took away is if I stop judging externally, I will stop being so harsh on myself. So I started to catch myself. Whoa, I didn't need to say that. Whoa, I didn't need to say that. And then I hear people tell me that they're non-judgmental or without judgment. And it's like, that's a lie. Like, if you stop judging, you're Buddha, and that's awesome, but I doubt it. And so I like to admit that I can be incredibly judgmental. I feel like I'm constantly judging, and it's becoming aware of it that's helping me to be able to shift it. If I'm aware that I'm judging this person, I can slow down and back off and like call myself out, which is helpful in my life as well, because now I can realize I'm being judgmental on myself and I can slow down, call it out. So if you haven't ever really sat with your own thoughts and feelings and judgments and really started to become aware and awake to what's going on in your mind, how do you think that you're showing up for others? Just because you say you're not judgmental doesn't mean you're not judgmental. The work is to work through your own stuff so that when someone needs you to be there, you're not heading into your own mind to say things to fix it for other people or fade it. You can be comfortable in others having a process because you're aware that there is one as you have journeyed through your own. So when it comes to relationship with family, like I can look at my kids and think of like what's good for them and what's not good for them and what they need to do to change their lives and make it better, like eat in the morning. You know, the reality is that just because I know what they need, even if I tell them, it doesn't mean that they're going to do the thing. So I know that for me, if I look at my own stuff, I've had people telling me what to do my entire life. And to be honest, I don't always listen. And to be honest, sometimes they're right. And I come back around, I'm like, oh, like I could have saved a year if I would have just listened, but I didn't. So here we are. And then that way, when I am holding space for somebody, I don't feel like I need to constantly be telling them what they need to do in their life because it probably won't make a difference anyways. The person already knows, and they just need to find it within themselves to like have that thing that happens and then and then go there. So part of this work in taking care of self first is really like a reality of okay, I'm where I am, and like who am I to think that I know better than anybody else and tell them what to do about their lives. um so I think once you come to that place, then if you do end up giving advice, you're probably less attached to if people like follow through with it or not. I also looked up like what it meant to be non-judgmental because I was like, well, if holding space is holding a non-judgmental space, then what does that mean if I'm constantly judging? Like, even if I am holding space and someone's sharing with me about something, sometimes I'll think like, dude, leave your boyfriend, right? And that's a judgment, and that's not up to me. So like, how can I hold space without having these constant like, leave your boyfriend, do this, do that? So I created like a step-by-step way to hold space. And the very first one is this deep listening. So when you're listening to someone, it's not about that voice, like leave your boyfriend, or like, oh my goodness, that was such a good point. I need to talk about that. Or like, oh, when they were talking, they said this, and now I need to share that I went to Paris too. Like, listen instead of thinking about your response. It's actually about listening to what other people are saying, which is listening on many levels. What's interesting is when you actually pay attention, you hear what people are really saying. And I mean, I'm a stickler. Be impeccable with your word. So when someone is sharing from a place of wherever they're sharing from, and they start using certain words, I'll call you out on that. And the first thing when I call someone out on their words, the first thing that they start doing is, well, I didn't mean it that way. Yeah, but you said it. So the fact that you have to try to explain to me what you meant, this is an issue because that's not being impeccable with your word. So to be honest, and I say this in coaching all the time, to be honest, that is a true representation of what you're feeling, which is why it's called a Freudian slip, right? You're actually telling me what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And the fact that you are now going back on it is being inauthentic. So let's touch on what the word, let's just say aggressive means. When you say someone is being aggressive, and I look up the definition of aggressive, this is Can we be in agreement that this is what aggressive means? And so by you saying they're being aggressive, then I'm taking it as they are this. And if you have to explain that in any way, then you're using the wrong words. So it's a me problem again. It comes back to me in the way that I'm saying things. And the lesson is in somebody else hearing me say that and then calling me out on it. So if you're sitting there just trying to come up with your response, then you're not actually going to hear what somebody's really saying, which is a gift that I have, which is why I'm a good coach. I hear what someone's saying. I hear where they're coming from. So step two is listening without judgment. And so how do I do that? If I'm so judgy, how do I listen without judgment? So I think it can be hard, but what I looked up was the true definition of non-judgmental. And what the definition is when someone or something does not express an opinion. So this big part does not express an opinion. So I can have an opinion, it's just not expressing it. Whoa, because expressing it is giving it that much more attention. So we all have opinions. It's kind of like a thing that people like to share them. But when you're holding space for someone, you must remove your opinion from the conversation and allow the other person the space to present theirs. So if you have ever watched Temptation Island, one of the things that Mark Wahlberg offers at the end is conscious communication. And he opens a space for each person to hold space for the other. And the communication is amazing to witness. So, first person's going to talk and say what they need to say, and the other person is going to listen and not say anything, not make faces, not make hand gestures, just listen to the other person and hear what they're saying. And then the next person gets to do the same. So the idea is when the person is like sharing, you're not thinking about your responses. You're literally present listening to what they're saying. And when they say, I feel this way and this and that, we validate their feelings because that's how they're feeling. You can't say no to the way people feel. If somebody says, like, I feel like you don't love me, I mean, to say, well, that's not true. I love you. That's not actually validating their feelings. It's like, wow, I can't believe you would think that. Or maybe that's not, maybe those are not the best words. It's like, I don't want you to feel that way because I do love you. So exactly what is it that I do in which you take that message away? And it's not like, what do I need to change? But like, I really want to know what behaviors I have in which my partner wouldn't feel loved. And I don't want them to feel that way. So I actually want to shift in order for them to feel loved. So also, what can I do in which you would feel loved? Right? Like those are things that I would have in the back and forth. So first person talks, other person listens, other person talks, first person listens, and then there's a back and forth. An argument doesn't get you anywhere because it puts the person on defense. So the idea is like listen without judgment. Listen to the other person say, when you raise your voice, I immediately, feel unsafe. So now I know anytime I raise my voice, this person's going to feel unsafe. So now, I mean, I can continue to raise my voice all I want. I'm a grown ass, sovereign ass being. And do I want my partner to feel unsafe? Absolutely not. So the next time I go to raise my voice, I'm going to think about it. And that's really conscious communication. So one of the things that I find amazing is like, it seems like everybody loves to share their opinion, especially unsolicited. So most of the time when we're holding space, we're not there to fix anything. That's a very masculine trait, right? Someone's talking about how they feel, and another person is like, okay, well, you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you need to do this. And the reality is, they're not looking for an action plan. They probably already know what to do. They're literally just like sharing their experience. And that's it. They just need somebody to listen. So, your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So what do you do with your own voice, with your own advice? Like, just take it. You have to think about you are a person that has lived your entire life through your experiences, through your lenses, through everything that's ever happened to you. And another person is living their life through their lens, through their experiences, and everything that's ever happened to them. So for me to tell you what's better for you in your life is messed up, because I really only know what's better for me in my life. So if I share it with you, then I'm just like literally setting you up for failure. So the idea is, don't share your opinion. Keep it in, and then take your own advice. If you're telling someone they should leave their partner, it's like, well, what's happening in your own house? Right? It's so funny that I'll hear people say, well, if my partner ever did that, I would leave them. And it's like, yeah, yeah. And, looking at your current situation, if my partner ever did half of that shit, I would leave them. So, like, the advice is not like analogous through everything, it's specific to each person. Step 3 is to practice loving kindness. So, what is loving kindness? It's a Buddhist philosophy that involves cultivating compassion and love for all beings, the earth, and the self. There is a popular loving kindness meditation mantra that reads, "May all humans, beings everywhere be healthy, happy, and free." I think that's Loka Samasta Sukhi no Bhavantu. And it's the art of sending positive and loving thoughts to all people in the universe. So that is something that you can do when you're holding space. Instead of thinking about your response or what you would do in their situation or like how you should answer them, what I do, because that's usually from a place of ego and bias, is I will listen. I'll listen to the words, and then I just send them like, you are such a brilliant human. Like, I know you can figure this out. I know you've got this. I love you. Like, in my head, it's just like, I just trust that this person can take care of themselves. And that's the only major response that someone's going to get from me, is like, I trust you. I trust you to take care of yourself. So then step 4 is to allow the person to do what needs to be done. So make room for and allow the other person to feel all that they need to feel. So hold them only if they want while they cry. Allow them to yell or scream if necessary. And then start to be comfortable with silence yourself. Do not console. Get clear with your own emotions and your own reactions, and then start to sit with them so that you aren't so uncomfortable with other people's emotions. So, back to me running somatic retreats. So, I get messages. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to get there. I'm so interested in somatics. I've read a lot about it. I've done this, I've done that, blah, 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 right? And then people come, and then we slow down, because somatics really is about the art of releasing the feelings that are stored within your body. And we don't do that through power vinyasa. And so I have power vinyasis coming to a yoga retreat where we're going to slow down. And so what's going to happen, right? That person's going to be agitated because there's no bypassing. I don't like drinking on my retreats because, first of all, I'm sober. And I think that drinking is a way that a lot of people bypass their emotions. I think it's a culturally uh, created way of dealing with our issues or coping with our issues, but not in a healthy way. So I prefer people not drinking. I prefer people coming on retreat and not going on vacation. Like the idea is to come and do work. And that work isn't by bypassing and not doing it. So what happens is someone comes and then we slow down and emotion comes up. And because people have not been taught like emotions are okay, they've literally created an entire life around avoiding emotions, then those emotions come up and we've literally been taught like our emotions are because, how does that make me feel? Well, you make me feel this way. So all of our emotions are not our own, they're from everybody else. And if everybody else changes their behaviors, then I can be okay. Like, great way to hand off all your power, friends. Like, come on. And I've said this to everybody that I've ever been in a fight with for the last like 10 years is like, I will not continue this conversation with you if you continue to put me in a place that I'm responsible for your emotions. I am not responsible for the way that you feel. Own your emotion. If you say, I feel a certain way, and you feel that way when I do a certain thing, I now have an opportunity as an adult to choose to continue to do that thing or not. But you, as an adult, have the opportunity to continue to be offended by it. So, in holding space, I allow other people to have their expression. So, if somebody wants to like go off and be upset with me while they're having emotion, then as a facilitator, I can understand that. I still have boundaries. Like, someone cannot just like call me names and tell me I'm a piece of crap and that I did the worst job ever. But I do expect that as soon as people slow down, they're going to emote. And because people are literally so emotionally unintelligent, because we've been trained this way since we were 2 years old for generations and generations, that they're just going to emote onto me. And now that means that I can either be upset at every single person that comes into retreat and gets upset with me, or I can start to recognize, oh, wow, okay, this happens. And so as a facilitator, I'm holding space for people to direct their emotions on me. How do I handle that? How do I take care of myself? Do I continue to offer this? And if I am going to, then I cannot be upset, but rather I can educate. And how can I best educate people to realize that they're upset not because of me, but because they are upset and it's in them. And there is no one that needs to be directed towards in order to emote. I hope this is landing and making sense. So, what do I do when I'm in that space? Well, I always think, I've got the loving kindness that I'm sending to somebody, and then I also use the power of my breath. If I can always just breathe, then I'm always okay. And when I'm upset, I'm not breathing. So it's such a great way to come back to me, to relax my nervous system. Sighing can shift, and then breathing can also remind the other person to breathe. So I'm not going to be like, ah, while somebody's sharing with me, but I will take a moment to come back to self to breathe. And deep breathing is the most powerful way to stay connected to yourself, which will then in turn remind others to breathe. And then it's really important that you let go of the fix it mentality. That's the last step in holding space, is like, you're not actually, like, they're not coming to you for advice, period. And again, your advice is not best for them. So as a facilitator, as a space holder, what can you ask them so that they can answer their own question? Because they know best what they need in order to move forward, to fix a thing, to do whatever. I think that it's been ingrained in us that we have power without instead of power within. And a true leader empowers. And a not true leader like takes power. And so, really, what are you here for? Are you here to power over others and manipulate? Or are you here to empower others? Which, I mean, essentially is another form of manipulation, but it's manipulating people to believe in themselves and answer their own questions and no longer blame other people for where they're at and what they're doing. So, a couple tips that go with that is like really strengthening your own comfort with discomfort. And I think that practicing ice baths, doing yin is a really great way to practice getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's always nice to like wiggle a little bit, take some breaths, settle into the space. And then don't be doing this just to be like a persona. Like, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm so woke. I can just listen. Like, be true to yourself, which means like if you're not in a space to hold space, then let people know. And then remind people to take care of themselves. Like, give them permission and then ensure that they have a support system in which they can rely on, go back to, and that you're not just it. I think there's a couple things that are like must-haves for space holding. I think it's important that you have your own practice because if your practice is while you're practicing, then it's really about you and not them. And that's not facilitating, that's just having a practice. I think it's important to have your own space. So, in order for you to hold space, you must have space. So, you have to also have someone that holds space for you, a place to release all your own stuff, lighten your own load, and create space in your body. So, how do you do that? And then your breath is an important part of space holding. I've already mentioned that. Balance and a sense of humor, and not to deflect or bypass, but to, when kind of like having gone through the work, to then it's like a congratulatory, like, okay, that was hard and we're still okay. And I do think that when you hold space for someone, it is important to offer follow-up. So part of seva or service is not opening a wound and then supporting and healing it with a financial exchange. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with like offering a free call so that I can dig in, open up a wound, and then be like, oh, great, I could help you heal this for $60,000. Right? If I'm gonna open up a wound, then I'm gonna make sure to like at least bandage it. And I only want people that want to work with me, um, to work with me. So I'm not manipulating in any way to get that to happen. So if, I offer past life regressions a lot and that can open up some stuff. Make sure that everybody has access to me if they're having trouble processing, if a couple days later it's still bothering them or anything like that. And they don't have to pay me for that. And then I also have my own boundaries. I think those are very important. It means that, like I offer um, a free value call and I offer referral stuff. If you refer someone to my teacher training, I'll give you a teacher training. Like I'll pay you some money, like a referral fee. Like there's so much that I will do in exchange for you. And if someone takes advantage of that, I also have boundaries. So if I, offer a free call and then after I'm like, awesome, how'd that go? Follow up. And then they follow up and then they book another call and then they just start booking calls. Like I will literally be like, hey, this is what I do for a living. If you want to have a regular coach, then you need to like sign up for a program. And if they want to like not and then disappear, then that's on them. So having boundaries, it does not mean constant and free work draining yourself of energy. And then be honest. One of the things that I keep seeing is like all the lies, all the little white lies, like radical honesty. I know it's a journey in itself, but honestly, be honest with yourself, be honest with your students, be vulnerable. That is strength, not the opposite. In order for you to like create a safe space to engage with your community. So I'm going to stop there because what we're doing is literally holding space means you must be regulated and you're offering a space for people to regulate. So from here on out, I'm going to dive more into the nervous system, etc., so that that then relates to holding space. And yeah, that's where I'm going to stop. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining me on Yoga is Science. I hope today's episode offered you a fresh perspective on the incredible synergy between the ancient yogic practices and our modern day science. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who could benefit from these insights. And until next time, keep exploring the science of life.